So peep this, fam. It appears that the Democratic Party is trying to see who could be the candidate that would be able to rival a Donald Trump. Corporate media is already making decisions, and they seem to think that John Fetterman is the answer to Donald Trump. I'm not making this up. Why do they think that, right? So there's been a lot of weakness within the Democratic Party, in particular Democrat leadership. You can see this tweet here from Hakeem Jeffries. Presidents come and presidents go. Through it all, God is still on the throne. Presidents come and presidents go. Through it all, God is still on the throne. What you talking about, Hakeem? What does this even mean, Hakeem? So this is part of the problem that people have with Democrat leadership. This weakness. Oh, well, presidents come, presidents go. I'm not going to fight. God's on the throne. This is part of the problem. So now it appears that corporate media has been pushing this idea of John Fetterman for president. Now, there are a number of issues with John Fetterman, which I will discuss, which I warned people about when he was running for Congress. But don't believe me? CNN, they're one of the ones. It needs to be John Fetterman, they believe.
One person that we were talking about that has also tried to ingratiate themselves with the White House, maybe not ingratiate, but has met with them and certainly made the tributes, is John Fetterman, a Democratic senator from Pennsylvania who Trump very much did not want to win that Senate race. You have some reporting on how people are kind of turning to him, or certain Democrats who maybe feel rudderless. What have you heard?
Yeah, it's just that John Fetterman sort of offers like an authentic type of like bro masculinity that matches what Donald Trump was offering this election cycle. He's also a moderate from a state that the Democrats lost, and he speaks his mind. He speaks like from off the cuff authentically. He sounds like Donald Trump. He's not willing to buck the party and establishment in the same way that Donald Trump was willing to buck the party and the establishment and create the party in his own way. Sure, the base doesn't really love Fetterman a lot, and I think that's why you hear a lot of conspiracies that he's going to be a Republican, but he just like might be the guy that Democrats need right now when they don't have a unified leader who can just speak plainly in Trump's speak against him. He's the kind of guy who would go on Joe Rogan and really hold his own, and the Democrats don't have that person right now.
It's like they want the Democratic Party to continue to lose. It should be John Fetterman because he's authentic and he has a bro-like culture. This is what they're going for now, folks. Let's go with a bro. Someone who's like rough and tough and masculine and bro-like. Nothing really about policy. Don't believe me? There's a whole ad. They have a whole ad now about changing the party. You guys have got to see this. We'll go to the View video first. He was on the View. So you're going to see this. John Fetterman has been making the rounds. He's going on all these different talk shows. He was just at Mar-a-Lago with Donald Trump, by the way. And now he's on the View. And so they're putting him out there in the spotlight. So corporate media is giving more and more attention to John Fetterman. And there's a reason for that. And I'm going to explain to you why. Listen to this here.
There are those on the left who feel like you have made a rightward shift recently, going to Mar-a-Lago, joining Truth Social, your positions on issues like immigration, fracking. What do you say to those who are now, in a sense, questioning your commitment to the Democratic Party?
Oh, well, first, I want to just say I am so sorry for what happened to that officer. I mean, he's had a heart attack. His life, he almost died. I mean, I've had a stroke. Same thing. Absolute empathy and just appalled for what I witnessing what happened on January 6th. And I absolutely would reject pardoning people that were involved on that. And so right word, that's just happened not to be true. I've been on record, too, saying I am not going to become a Republican. you know, although maybe some people might be happy on one side, but I would make a pretty terrible Republican because, you know, pro-choice, really strong immigration, pro-LGBTQ, you know, just pretty like, I don't think I'd be a good fit. So I'm not going to change my party. And if I am going to I'm going to show up. I'll give you the exclusive. I can announce. So I can't keep chasing down every last thing that's online because they're just happen not to be true. And just look at my votes. Look at the things that I haven't changed in a way.
Well, talking about your vote.
Let me pause here for a second. Because yes, Random is correct. Pro-war, 100%. This is someone who is pro-war. This is someone who is very pro-Israel, which I'll get to in a second. Now, John Fetterman, though, is not who he appears to be. Because you see, what they're trying to do is they're trying to sell, look at this guy, John Fetterman. He wears a hoodie. Comes from a blue collar background, which is false. But this is the impression that you would get. He looks like a guy that works with his hands, rough and tough dude, isn't trying to put on a suit, but he put on a suit for Benjamin Netanyahu. I'm not saying you got to wear a suit to the View, but he won't put on a suit to go to Congress. But when Netanyahu showed up, he put on a suit. Gee, I wonder why. Maybe it has something to do with all the money he's getting from AIPAC. So they're tricking you. They're trying to trick people. Corporate media too. He's cosplaying. They're trying to convince you that he's this rough and tough dude with a blue collar background, cares about the people, cares about the workers. When in reality, John Fetterman comes from a very privileged upbringing, has a pretty privileged background. Now, you wouldn't guess that. If you see him walking around wearing a hoodie and shorts all the time, you'll probably think, oh, this guy probably doesn't have a lot of money. Wrong. But that's what they want you to believe. That's what they want you to fall for. Then he goes on to The View. And because of the nature of the questions that the host on The View ask him, and because they're just not politically astute, they make John Fetterman coming out of this interview looking like the king. Let's continue.
You joined all of your fellow Democrats and 3 Republicans in voting against Pete Hegseth as Defense Secretary. But you were a yes on Kristi Noem, on Marco Rubio, and you've indicated you'll vote in favor of other Trump picks like Elise Stefanik for UN Ambassador. You've also taken meetings with some of the...
Go back to Elise. Of course, he would vote yes on Elise. Of course, he's got thumbs up there standing next to Elise. These are 2 AIPAC puppets, Fetterman and Elise Stefanik. So, of course, he's going to support her. Same with Marco Rubio. The question people need to be asking is, why did Bernie Sanders vote for Marco Rubio? Staunch Zionist, pro-war. They both answer to the same lobby interest group. Of course, he's all in for Elise Stefanik. Don't forget some of the things that John Fetterman said about the pro-Palestinian protesters. Don't forget the fact that I'll show you one of the videos, how he was very happy with what Israel was doing, how he doesn't care about those Palestinian kids that died. I mean, how gruesome can you get? And another thing, this thing here with the hoodie. Let's keep it real, folks. If John Fetterman was a black man in Congress, showing up every day wearing a damn hoodie, they would try to do everything that they could to get him out of Congress. They would have lobby interest group out of lobby interest group. We got to get that guy out of here. How dare he show up with just a hoodie on and some shorts and sneakers? He's one of the most privileged people that you'll probably ever see that is a newbie entering Congress. And it's not just by wealth. That's the privilege that John Fetterman has. And it really pisses me off, to be honest with you, because like I said, a black man in Congress could not get away with that shit. And he has the money to have a suit. Let's continue.
You've also taken meetings with some of the most controversial appointees.
Really, all of them. The controversial ones are the non-ones. Yeah.
So the controversial ones are Tulsi Gabbard and RFK Jr. Their hearings are set for later this week. Do you know how you're going to vote yet?
Well, again, it's like we just like all of you are going to watch the hearings and see how things go. And I was committed to having an open dialogue with anyone, and I've played it straight. And that's the same kind of rules that I play, and that's what I extend to them. And I found that to be illuminating, and I was able to develop a more full, informed choice. And that's what I've been doing there. Some were real easy, like Rubio. I mean, he's incredibly qualified, and there's other ones that are going to be controversial, and you're going to see some really controversial ones coming up this week. But now,
he was also really easy to vote for because he's also a part of, that AIPAC crew. So of course they're going to support each other.
I can't say. I refuse to even spend some time to just hear them directly from them, just the way I'm doing right now, having a conversation. So that's what I've decided, and I haven't regretted it.
All right. Well, our thanks to Senator John Fetterman. Hegseth got in anyway. But you.
So John Fetterman also, for people who may have forgotten, remember John Fetterman had a stroke not too long ago. I think it was not too long after he entered Congress. He had a stroke. So corporate media and The View's getting in on this too. So you got CNN, you got The View. This is what they do. They're telling you who they want the person to be. They're not letting the voters say, hey, this is the person we want. The media is trying to tell you this is the person that you should want. This is why corporate media can be, an asset, or it can just be a liability, or it can be a disaster. It just depends how it's being used. And now you'll see there's this ad. John Fetterman's in this ad about changing the Democratic Party. We've worked on some of the biggest, this is Fight Agency, worked on some of the biggest, toughest, most innovative races in the country. We're launching Fight to help a new generation of candidates meet the moment. If you want to run a different kind of campaign, join the Fight. Ro Khanna cheered this on, by the way. Watch this.
Be good?
Let's go.
Action.
This is why people hate politics.
Pause. If I remember correctly, we'll go back to John Fetterman here. Hold on.
Be good?
So there's John Fetterman. All right. So they're proposing a number of people here that they think should be used to fight back against Donald Trump, against the Republican Party. And of course, John Fetterman is a part of it. And Ro Khanna was cheering this on Twitter, by the way. But then you have, watch this.
Let's go.
Action.
This is why people hate.
This is John Osborne. Why is John Osborne in this ad? John Osborne ran for Congress. Actually, yeah, he ran for Congress as an independent. He was in Nebraska. He was actually doing really well. It looked like there was a chance there he could win. Why is John Osborne in a Democrat ad for fighting for the future? So is he trying to switch over now? You see what's going on? I listened to multiple interviews with John Osborne that said that both of these parties are a disaster. Now John Osborne's in a Democrat ad.
Politics.
Donald Trump will become the 47th president.
Republicans will pull off a political trifecta, controlling the House, the Senate, and the White House.
How can the left possibly come back from this?
Part of his rise, a creative ad campaign.
Tenacious, focused, unstoppable.
Let me pause that because of the music, but you guys can see what's happening here, right? So they have this guy, they have her. So you see that they're showing so they're trying to show, oh, look, we're with the workers. And there's Bernie Sanders. So you can see this here, taking on the Republicans, how Democrats can win back. You see who they're showing? There's Bernie again, too. So now all of a sudden they're okay with Bernie. Yeah, because he's not running. You see this? So does everybody see the games that they play? So this is who they're trying to push. Now they're trying to push John Fetterman, who just haven't even been there that long, right? So again, I told you they make it seem like he comes from like this working class blue collar background, which he does not. I really don't like people cosplaying blue collar, because those of you that grew up in a blue collar family, you know what that life was like. Those of you who grew up lower income, you know what that was like. John Fetterman did not grow up that way, but they're trying to sell that to you. Corporate media is trying to sell that image to you. Look at this. This is back when John Fetterman was speaking to the Kennedy School at Harvard. So for Lieutenant Governor of Pennsylvania, John Fetterman, this is 2021, public service is personal. Listen, so peep this out, a little bit about Fetterman's background. It says that John Fetterman, at MPP 1999, at that time, he was the lieutenant governor of Pennsylvania. Listen to this. His parents were just teenagers when they were born, but his father went on to build a successful insurance business. And Fetterman grew up in a comfortable suburban home, played football at Albright College, and then earned his MBA at the University of Connecticut. So, does that sound blue collar to you? No. MBAs are expensive, by the way. Master of Business Administration is very expensive. That is not a cheap program. So there's that. Then to go on, we're going to talk about when he ends up at Harvard. So he talks about personal tragedy. I was getting ready to graduate. My friend was supposed to come over. We were going to go to the gym, never showed up. And then he found out that he was killed in a car crash. Goes on to say here, he said, I thought, how can this coexist with the world I know? How can you have a child who would be an orphan before his 9th birthday? At that point, I had my MBA and was good to go, but it didn't seem right. So I joined AmeriCorps and ultimately ended up at the Kennedy School. John Fetterman went to Harvard. So this is someone walking around in a hoodie, and corporate media is trying to sell it. Oh, he's this bro guy. You know, he's for the worker, blue collar. He's not blue collar. And I don't like when people cosplay that. You know, it reminds me of the wealthy kids that would move to like a lower income neighborhood in New York or in DC and try to pretend like, oh, we're slumming it. And they're not slumming it. They came from wealthy families. That's what that reminds me of. I don't like that. John Fetterman. That's who they're pushing. And then the other problem that you run into with John Fetterman, and a lot of people may not know this or forget about this. I warned people about this when he was running for Congress. There's the issue that John Fetterman might have with black voters. And that goes back to this incident. Even though he says, by the way, during the debate that John Fetterman had with Dr. Oz, he would not apologize for this incident. And I'm talking about this incident right here. This is who they're pushing. This is who CNN is pushing, but they don't tell you about this. Fetterman's past gun incident rattles black Democrats in Pennsylvania Senate race. The cosplaying, right? So John Fetterman said he heard what sounded like gunfire and saw a man running away. So he reacted by getting his kid inside to safety before he called 911. So let's pause there. He called 911. And then what did he proceed to do? What Fetterman did next, however, still haunts him 9 years later as he campaigns for the Democratic nomination for the Senate in Pennsylvania. He chased the man down with a shotgun and detained him until the police arrived. Let me just pull up here. He didn't just detain him. He pointed a gun to that guy's chest. John Fetterman did that after he called 911. This could have easily ended up like a Trayvon Martin situation, where John Fetterman took the matter into his own hands. Now, you tell me something. This is how you know people are handpicked. I knew there was something slimy about him when Hillary Clinton endorsed him. And some leftist commentators were saying John Fetterman is progressive. How the hell are you progressive if you get an endorsement from Hillary Clinton? That should have been a big red flag, ladies and gentlemen. He's another one that was chosen. So again, imagine if John Fetterman was a black guy and he did this and then ran for Congress. Let me tell you what else happened. It goes on to say here, it turned out that the man was jogging and wearing running clothes. Just a guy jogging. According to a police report, the man was unarmed and said the sound of gunfire was actually fireworks, although 2 witnesses thought they heard shots. So, second of all, there weren't even gunshots. It was fireworks. I'm just sitting up here thinking how a man who was jogging, minding his own business, could have easily just lost his life that quick. And John Fetterman, because of his privilege, could have easily said, he charged at me. And if the victim is dead, they can't defend themselves. So who do you think the police is going to believe? Very scary here. The man that Fetterman pulled the gun on is black. Fetterman, the mayor of Pittsburgh area borough of Braddock at the time, and now the state lieutenant governor, is white. Fetterman, 52, said he couldn't tell the jogger's race initially because of how he was bundled up in the winter cold. Okay, so let me get this straight. So you couldn't tell the jogger's race. You couldn't tell any of this because it was bundled up, but you felt safe charging at what you could not see really with a gun. Let's go on here. What happened? You're frozen? I'm not frozen on my end. It might just be you. Okay, continuing on. Across the state, Democrats who work with black voters and are neutral in the May 17th primary fault Fetterman's actions and explanations thus far, and they worry that attacks on him over the incident could depress African-American turnout in November in its 2 biggest urban areas, Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, a must for Democrats to carry the Commonwealth. Again, during the debate with Dr. Oz, of course, brought this up. And he said, do you apologize for chasing that jogger down and pointing a gun to his chest? And John Fetterman said, no, I do not. No sympathy, empathy whatsoever. From what I understand, the guy eventually apparently forgave him, but John Fetterman didn't even feel bad about it. And this is who corporate media is pushing. This is who they think should be president. Someone who obviously had no regard or respect for black life, doesn't want to apologize for it, took matters into his own hands after he called 911. Cosplaying Uncle Fester, John Fetterman. Again, I want you to think about his privilege. Then I want you to think about what he said about the damage that Israel has done. He said this on Meet the Press. Listen to this.
This week, as you know, a new front opened in the war in the Middle East, jeopardizing ceasefire talks. Senator Bernie Sanders accused Prime Minister Netanyahu of sabotaging a deal. Take a look at what he said.
Every time a deal appears close, Netanyahu moves the goalposts, introducing new demands and torpedoing the deal. It is clear to me that Netanyahu is prolonging the war in order to cling to power.
Senator, you have stood firmly behind Israel, but do you agree with any part of what your colleague, Senator Sanders, said there?
No, not at all. And I want to be very clear. I thought what Israel chose to do about blowing up the pagers and then walkie-talkies, and then after targeting and eliminating membership and leadership of Hezbollah, I absolutely support that. And in fact, if anything, I love it. And Israel demonstrated that they will not allow terrorists not to be held accountable. And I fully support that. And it's not about nothing that has what my colleague has said.
Top stories.
That was John Fetterman being an absolute asshole. And that's how he's been throughout this. Ever since October 7th, he's been very, very nasty and vocal about that. But if some of you would have seen me when he was running for Congress, my channel was a lot smaller then, so I didn't get as much reach. But if you would have seen me back then, you would have known this was coming, because I also covered this story about John Fetterman, not just the one about the jogger. He was warning people hands on. John Fetterman says he'll lean in on U.S.-Israel relationship as senator. This was a big alarm that I sounded to people. So, of course, Hillary Clinton endorsed him, right? So they already I told you they already have the people. He said, whenever I'm in a situation to be called on to take up the cause of strengthening and enhancing the security of Israel or deepening our relationship between the United States and Israel, I'm going to lean in. The relationship is a special one that needs to be safeguarded, protected, supported, and nurtured through legislation and all available diplomatic efforts in the region. They went on to call him a progressive, and he went on to say multiple times he is not progressive. And they went on and they sold him as that. He's never come out and said that he's not a supporter of Israel, but the perception is that he aligns with the squad more than anything else. That was coming from Democratic activist Brett Goldman. That wasn't really true. Speaking to J.I., however, Fetterman said he's not encountered such concerns during his campaign, noting that he has been very clear about his views on Israel in conversations with a number of advocacy groups. It goes on to say, he said, I would also respectfully say that I am not really a progressive in that sense. Our campaign is based on core democratic values and principles and always has been. And there's no daylight between myself and these kinds of unwavering commitments to Israel's security. So this is what I tried to warn people about John Fetterman. And it wasn't until that debate that he had with Dr. Oz that people started to realize, oh my God, I don't think this guy is progressive. He told you he wasn't. And I sat there and I watched some left commentators mislead their audience and make them believe that John Fetterman was a progressive, when if they would have read the same article that I did or watched any of his interviews when he was questioned about that, they would have seen that he was not. So why would they sell it that way? What you have happening right now, ladies and gents, John Fetterman is a useful tool. He's a useful tool by corporate media, could be a useful tool by the Democratic Party, the establishment, to try to get you to believe that this is someone who may be like you, someone who may come from a working class background or a blue collar background, someone who's not really into establishment or establishment rules and isn't willing to put on a suit for the occasion, someone who is going to stand up for the workers, someone who also is going to protect all different types of rights of those and respect people that are different identity, etc. But that would be wrong. John Fetterman chased down a black jogger and pointed a gun to his chest after he called 911 and refused to apologize for it till this day. John Fetterman made it very clear that he will lean in on Israel regardless of the matter, which is what you see happening now. John Fetterman said on Meet the Press that he was happy that Israel did what they did. He doesn't care about the kids that have died in Gaza. He is a useful tool of AIPAC and of corporate media to try to trick you. Do not let corporate media this time around trick you into believing that someone is a part of the blue collar class that is not. This guy went to Harvard. He has an MBA. He comes from an affluent family. They're trying to sell you a scam. Gotta be careful out there, folks. Gotta be careful. They're pulling out all the stops. You may have seen them do this with other people before. Yeah, Deborah said he's cosplaying. Exactly. He not coming from that background. Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.